The party of adventurers find an entrance to an ancient ruin. What is the source of the ancient ruin? Why is it a ruin? Let's talk about ancient civilizations. Welcome to my channel. I focus on tabletop role-playing games, video games, and science fiction. One thing I think that Skyrim did very well was they introduced the Dwemer ruins. So you had those all over the place. You could recognize them just by their style when you're playing the video game, which gives us something to take a look at if we're going to add ruins and things like that into our world. Now I've said that you can create dungeons for various other purposes, but this is ancient civilization. Now, the interesting question, does the civilization still exist? This gets you into, I think that it was called the movie She, and there's a bunch of others where they partially exist, or you can get into maybe the majority of the civilization was destroyed. That gets into the various Atlantis type scenarios. But you can also come back and create your own. Now, one that popped into my mind, which is an interesting one, which was the Game of Thrones. What happens if the White Walkers win? Now, I did a video on that, asking that question. Would George R.R. Martin do something like that? And many people agree he actually possibly could. But let's take an idea and expand on that. Let's assume the White Walkers win. Now, they appear to be trying to kill all the living. Okay, that's fine. Let's put this 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 years in the future after the White Walkers win. Now you've got the destruction of all these civilizations, and presumably some people who are alive have survived. Maybe some of the White Walkers have survived. But it's a very different world because it's been decimated by war with basically ice zombies, or the White Walkers. Another one is if we take a look at the old movie, The Last Man on Earth, or The Omega Man, or there were a newer remake which was awful, but where some disease came in and destroyed the majority of the population, and it's in ruin, and we're far enough in advance that either they've developed immunity or they've developed a way around it, and you're trying to rebuild the world. And this is the world that you create for your campaign. So you could use that one. Drought, I'm just going to list some of the standard approaches to killing off civilizations. Drought, famine, plague, pestilence. War, we talked about. Earthquake, which would include Atlantis. Flood, that's Atlantis. Sinkhole is an interesting one where the whole thing gets sucked underground. That's a variation on that. Landslide, wildfire. You could have a comet or meteorite hit near or at the center of the civilization. Blizzard, the world could just become colder and colder, or the main civilization. Series of tornadoes coming through. We're no longer in Kansas anymore, Toto. Hurricane, we're seeing that one. Volcanic eruptions destroying all these. All of these could come through and destroy a civilization. You can see, what is it? It's the story about Thera, which was the volcano that exploded, which may be the reason for the stories of Atlantis and so on. But you can take and decide how the civilization was destroyed, how long after the civilization was destroyed is your world set. But this gives us a reason for these various ruins. Now, the interesting question is does your civilization have to be human? Or does it, or like in Skyrim, it's Dwemer, but does it have to even be humanoid? I think of Forbidden Planet. and you never saw what the Krell looked like. If you've ever, highly recommend you watch Forbidden Planet, but they show you the doorway and you go, that's not the kind of doors we normally use. Now, I once started, never went anywhere because the players went other directions. I once had the players find some ruins from an ancient centaur civilization. Now, this makes an interesting approach. It's no longer your standard humanoid creatures. It's a centaur, which has different things about them as a civilization, and you could create a civilization, pick whatever you want. Make that the basis of a civilization. If they're intelligent, then you can decide how the civilization is destroyed. You can do the one from the movie Serenity, where they do something and they just all sit down and die. That's a depressing one. But then the question is that you come back in and find things. As a DM, you probably want to know why the civilization died. That's a simple decision. But you start to put things into your campaign that they can find. Now, the interesting question is that they find things that they don't know what they are. And like, for example, the centaur, you find tools and things that were designed specifically for centaurs. Now, that doesn't mean that they couldn't be used by other species, but they don't quite fit right. If you've seen some of the stuff, if you've seen Skyrim, the armor looks a little odd, but there's some things about that. And you make it from the various pieces and so on. And the idea is that you could find things in this ancient civilization which may be used for something other than what you expected, but now they're using them as a weapon or a shield or a helmet, various things like that. It can add some interesting color. And if your civilization this ancient civilization has a particular style, particular set of colors that they use throughout. For example, we know that the ancient Egyptians were very prominent of this reddish color, most of which has disappeared from now, but we just see the tombs that they're not painted, but we know in the ancient that they were actually painted because there's traces of paint on them. And the same thing was true with the Greek statues. We always see how beautiful they are, just this marble, but we know that they actually were painted. The Greeks and Romans painted their statues to make them look more lifelike. And you could do the same type of thing. When you find this ancient ruin, you could see the color schemes that were common to this ancient world. So just by finding, they dig up a plate or something, and it's got this funny color scheme on it. And you know what that means, or they may know, or they could take it to a scribe or somebody who could tell them that the color scheme means something. That's there. So you can add a whole bunch of color or flavor to your world by using colors. You can, and particular styles of things like that. The Dwemer ruins in Skyrim are a classic example. You see the particular kind of metal and so on that's used throughout. You can create something like that in your ancient ruins that the players find. And over time, they will start to recognize some of this, and it adds more interest and depth to your world. So this is an interesting approach. Have you done any of these things in your world? What have you done? How have you created? Is there a reason for the ancient ruins? Are the ancient ruins always from one of the player races, or the races that players could actually play, or are they something really unusual, like the Krell from Forbidden Planet? I'd just like to hear your comments. Thank you for watching my video. I look forward to learning what you think about this video. Let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, press the thumbs up button. You can subscribe by clicking the link in the lower left. If you are interested, there are links to more content.